Hi, welcome to this episode of Untitled Geography. Today we're looking at the Urban Issues and Challenges section of the AQA course, our UK city which is Stoke-on-Trent, and extended questions all about social and economic challenges. The section that we're talking about here, as we said before, is social and economic challenges. So social to do with people and communities, economic to do with jobs, business and trade. So the challenges, the difficulties. The first one is urban deprivation, then inequalities in housing, inequalities in education, inequalities in health and also inequalities in employment. Our first exam question is question E, which is discuss the challenges created by social inequalities in housing and health in a chosen UK major city. As before, the first thing to do is annotate the question to see what is the question actually asking. Once you've done this first round of annotation, your next round of annotation is going to be adding in some AO1s, what you're actually going to include, some data, some examples, maybe some place names. Our command word here is discuss, so we're presenting the key points about the idea, so the strengths and weaknesses. As we can see in the yellow box in the centre, the structure strip. Firstly, we're going to include the case study, the example in the first sentence. We're going to address that straight away. Then look at the positives using a appeal paragraph. Then make a mini decision, so words like important, effective, successful. Then the second appeal paragraph, the negatives to the other side of the argument, appeal paragraph. And then a mini decision, so is this successful, important, effective? If you think there's not an equal discussion here, maybe include a second, positive or negative, depending how you think that goes. And finally, of course, most important is a conclusion. Weigh up your evidence and make a conclusion. So maybe the short term, the long term, social, economic, environmental. If it applies, also maybe the local and also global. But most importantly, words like significant, important, effective, successful, those are conclusion words, those are decision words. If you find yourself get a little bit confused about the different types of command words, then feel free to use the multi-tool structure. It's not perfect, but it's certainly going to get you towards where you need to be. The multi-tool structure is on the next slide. Here's the multi-tool structure, so it's very similar to discuss, so it's the introduction, the appeal positives, mini decision, appeal negatives, mini decision, and of course the conclusion at the end with words like significant, important, effective, successful. Those are decision words, those are conclusion words. So if you find you get yourself a little bit confused about discuss, assess, evaluate, to what extent, those, feel free to use this, and this will fit in most of those. So here's probably the amount of space that you would have, maybe 10 to 12 lines to answer this question. The mark schemes for this type of question are pretty generic. So level 1 is basic, level 2 is clear, level 3 is a thorough understanding. So probably equivalent of what you would maybe read in a textbook for level 3. Now you've written your answer, so see if you can pick out your assessment objectives AO1, AO2, AO3. So AO1, knowing good geography, just stuff, data, examples, geography words, place names. Do you understand the stuff AO2? So this means that, this results in, a knock-on effect of this is because, so or due to. That shows that you understand it. AO3, can you apply the knowledge, can you make a decision? So words like significant, important, effective and successful. Here's a possible example of an answer. Of course, yours might look different depending on which pieces of data you have picked out and which examples you have used, but the structure remains the same. Here you've got the AO1s, AO2s, AO3s identified, and also when you've done yours, look at your paragraphs. Can you look at your appeal paragraphs and separate those out? So housing and health impact gives social inequalities for a large majority of people in Stoke-on-Trent. So we've named the place. Health is rated below the UK average with an average of 4.97 in the scale. This can create challenges as people might not be able to work. A knock-on effect of this would be reduced quality of life for people, and it also impacts on the economy of the area. This impacts upon the challenges of increased medical care, such as the accident emergency section of North Staffordshire Hospital, and also increased medical costs. This is important as it would increase the cost for local and national governments. When looking into housing quality, only about 28.5% of houses are owned, which is below the UK average, with about 18.3% of people living in rented council houses. This then creates challenging local councils provide homes and also the funding to do so. This is again significant as it increases costs to local councils. In conclusion, many challenges are faced across the health and housing sectors due to the social inequalities in Stoke-on-Trent. I believe the most significant impact is felt upon housing. This is due to the large challenges local councils faced in supporting the higher percentage, 18.3% of residents in local council housing. So when you've done that, have a look at your AO1s, AO2s, AO3s, can you identify them? And also look at your appeal paragraphs, can you separate those out? Our next question here is, urban deprivation is caused by inequalities in education and employment. Do you agree with this statement? Explain your reasons. So that's 9 marks. And when it says, do you agree? In effect, it's a to what extent question. You don't have to totally agree, you don't have to totally disagree. Often it's wanting you to get into that grey area, that middle area of making a decision but seeing there's both sides to it. So we have here the support slide for to what extent. So that's examining the evidence to form an opinion, form a judgment about the success or importance of something. Can you figure it out? So for example, that grey area in the middle, maybe 40% you disagree, or 40% or 30%, or maybe 60% you agree, or 70% you agree. The structure strip in the middle, you can see here, we've got the positives, we've got the negatives, and it's a little bit different than the multi-tool structure because you definitely have 2 arguments on one side and 1 argument on the other side. So your introduction is going to be, to a large extent, 70%, I think that, and you'll name your place name. Of course, it might be to a small extent, which is 30 or 40%. First appeal paragraph, make a mini decision. Second appeal paragraph, make a mini decision. And then your third appeal paragraph is the opposite of what you think, just acknowledging that there's another point of view. Of course, at the end, weigh up the evidence, make a decision, and those decision words are things like important, successful, effective. Of course, as ever, if you find the command words a bit confusing in terms of discuss, evaluate, to what extent, assess, feel free to use the multi-tool structure. It's not going to get you all the way there, but it'll get you a good part of the way there and help you to include some of the key bits to get the highest possible marks you can there. Briefly here, we've got the multi-tool structure. So again, that's the introduction. Give me a positive with a mini decision with appeal paragraph. Give me a negative, appeal paragraph, mini decision, and then also weigh up, make a decision. So this is successful, this is important, this is significant, this is effective. Those are decision words that you're going to include in your conclusion. Here we have the main question, and again it said to do you agree with the statement. So as we've seen before in the previous slides, it said to what extent do you agree. You don't have to totally agree or totally disagree. It's about getting to that grey area in the middle, acknowledging that there's different points of view. The mark schemes, as ever, there's level 1, level 2, level 3. So level 1 is 1, 2, 3 marks, level 2, 4, 5, 6 marks, level 3, 7 and 8 marks. Level 1 is basic or limited points, brief statements. Level 2 is clear statements, so you're giving examples, so you're referring to both education and employment. And level 3, a thorough understanding, use of geography terms, data, education, employment, and it's written really well, grammatically well structured. The spelling, punctuation and grammar marks. If I was you, I would just go and I would just do your best spelling, your best punctuation throughout your work, and that'll just get you into a good habit. Now that you've had a go at your questions, can you identify the AO1s, AO2s, AO3s? So AO1s, knowing good geography stuff, so data, examples, place names, geography words. AO2s, can you explain your idea? So this results in a knock-on effect of this is, this means that, due to. AO3s, do you understand it? Can you make a decision? So make a conclusion, words like significant, important, successful, effective, those kind of things. Here we've got a sample answer, so you can see the AO1s, AO2s, AO3s identified in different colours with the key at the top. Down the left hand side we've got the different structures of the sentences, the peeled paragraphs. So I agree with this statement to a large extent, because education is poor in Stoke-on-Trent, with only about 33.8% of people having no qualifications, and employment is low, with about 20% of residents on some kind of benefit. So that's the introduction. You've said Stoke-on-Trent, you've given some data, you've introduced it, and you've said the word extent, which of course is the word from the question. Peel 1. The urban deprivation cycle shows the knock-on effects of education. High numbers of people in Stoke-on-Trent have no qualifications, about 33.8%. A knock-on effect of this is that people often struggle to find employment and furthermore end up claiming some kind of benefit. This is significant as it has a further knock-on effect to the local economy. Peel 2. If areas such as Stoke-on-Trent have few residents with a job, a knock-on effect of this can be higher crime levels, leading to further deprivation and also a loss of business when they do not have a qualified workforce. Two of the biggest causes of urban deprivation are the concentration of low-income residents and also a loss of industry. This is important to consider, as both of which can be a cause of loss of workers and employment. Your conclusion. In summary, I agree to a large extent that education and employment lead to urban deprivation. The most significant of these has been the lack of educational qualification among the resistance of people in Stoke-on-Trent, as the knock-on effects of this can include unemployment and business closures. Of course, as we said before, yours might be different, so different examples, different pieces of data, that's fine, just so long as your structure that is there and your AOs are there.